In the vastness of space, where civilizations measure their might by the sophistication of their weapons and the power of their technology, one species dares to do the impossible. While others rely on plasma cannons, energy shields, and molecular disruptors, humans have mastered something far more terrifying: their own bodies as weapons. What happens when an entire galaxy discovers that the most feared warriors in the universe fight with nothing but flesh, bone, and an indomitable will? What happens when beings who can shatter planets with their technology face creatures who can kill with their bare hands? This is the story of humanity's greatest secret weapon, themselves. A tale of discipline, sacrifice, and the raw power that lies dormant within every human soul. When the galaxy's most advanced civilizations finally encounter Earth's warriors, they will learn that sometimes the most primitive approach is also the most deadly. Prepare yourself for a journey that will challenge everything you think you know about strength, warfare, and what it truly means to be human in a universe that has forgotten the power of the unarmed fighter. Commander Zexal of the Galactic Defense Coalition stood before the massive viewing screen of his flagship, watching the small blue planet slowly rotate beneath him. Earth, as the inhabitants called it, had finally achieved faster-than-light communication and had requested formal first contact. The procedure was routine: send down diplomatic envoys, assess their military capabilities, negotiate trade agreements, and integrate them into the galactic community. What wasn't routine was the complete absence of any detectable weapons technology. Sir, his aide, Lieutenant Mordin, approached with a data pad clutched in his forearmed grip. The scanning reports are unusual. Zexhal's elongated head turned toward his subordinate. As a member of the Veltar species, his people had evolved from predatory hunters, though millennia of civilization had softened their edges. Their natural armor plating and enhanced reflexes made them formidable warriors, especially when equipped with modern weaponry. Define unusual, Zexal commanded, his voice carrying the authority of someone who had conquered 12 star systems. The humans appear to have no military technology beyond primitive projectile weapons. No energy shields, no plasma cannons, no molecular disruptors. Their most advanced weapon appears to be something they call a nuclear missile, which is essentially a controlled atomic explosion. Zexhal's mandibles clicked in what passed for laughter among his species. Atomic weapons? They're still using atomic weapons? That's technology we abandoned 5,000 years ago. Yes, sir. But there's more. Our deep scans indicate they have extensive facilities dedicated to something they call martial arts training. Large complexes where humans gather to engage in physical combat without weapons. The commander's interest peaked. Elaborate. Mordin consulted his datapad, his expression troubled. It appears to be some form of religious or cultural practice. Humans voluntarily enter these facilities to learn how to fight using only their bodies. No technology, no weapons, just physical techniques. Primitive ritual combat, Zexal mused. Probably ceremonial in nature. Many species maintain traditional fighting practices even after developing advanced weaponry. The Korathians still practice blade dancing, though they haven't used actual swords in combat for millennia. Perhaps, sir, but the scale is significant. Our estimates suggest that nearly 30% of their population engages in these practices to some degree. Zexal waved a dismissive hand. Irrelevant. Proceed with standard first contact protocols. Detail a small security team to accompany the diplomatic envoy. Standard energy weapons, personal shields. If these humans are truly as primitive as they appear, there should be no complications. 3 days later, the diplomatic shuttle touched down on Earth's surface at a location the humans had designated as neutral ground, a massive facility they called Madison Square Garden in something called New York City. The human government had explained that this was one of their premier venues for sporting events and entertainment, which seemed an odd choice for first contact, but Zexal had agreed to their terms. The coalition delegation consisted of Ambassador Telvac, a skilled diplomat from the peaceful Ashanti Confederation, along with 4 security personnel from Zexhal's own crew. They were equipped with standard energy weapons and personal deflector shields, more than sufficient to handle any conceivable threat from a species that still used chemical explosives as their primary military technology. What they found waiting for them defied all expectations. The massive arena was filled to capacity with humans, nearly 20,000 of them, all seated and watching intently. In the center of the space was a raised platform, and, standing on that platform was a single human male. He was smaller than the security team had expected. Humans, according to their intelligence reports, were a relatively diminutive species, averaging about 6 feet in height and possessing no natural armor or enhanced physical capabilities. This particular specimen appeared to be about average size, perhaps slightly smaller than most. What was unusual was his complete lack of any visible weapons or armor. He wore nothing but simple fabric coverings, shorts, and a sleeveless shirt that exposed most of his skin. His feet were bare, and his hands empty. Ambassador Telvac approached the designated meeting area cautiously, flanked by the security team. Their translator devices had been calibrated for basic human languages, allowing for real-time communication. "Greetings," Telvac began, his voice carrying clearly across the space. "I am Ambassador Telvac of the Galactic Defense Coalition. We come in peace to establish diplomatic relations with your species." The human stepped forward, and several things happened simultaneously that would later be analyzed in detail by coalition military strategists. First, the human moved with a fluid grace that seemed to contradict everything they knew about human physiology. His steps were precise, balanced, and economical. There was no wasted motion, no unnecessary tension in his posture. Second, every human in the arena fell silent. 20,000 voices stopped speaking, stopped breathing, as if responding to some invisible signal. Third, and most disturbing to the trained warriors in the security detail, the human's eyes never left their group, and those eyes held an intelligence and awareness that suggested he was cataloging every weapon, every piece of equipment, every potential threat with the precision of a military computer. "Welcome to Earth," the human said, his voice carrying clearly without any technological amplification. "I am Master Chen Wei, representing the United Earth Martial Council. Before we proceed with formal negotiations, our leaders have requested a demonstration of our cultural practices, as is traditional when greeting honored guests." Ambassador Telvac glanced at his security team. The lead guard, Sergeant Kickstar, a veteran of numerous campaigns, gave an almost imperceptible nod. His sensors showed no weapons, no energy signatures, no threat indicators of any kind. "We would be honored to witness your cultural traditions," Telvac replied diplomatically. What happened next would fundamentally alter the coalition's understanding of warfare, power, and what it meant to be truly dangerous. Master Chen Wei bowed slightly, a gesture of respect that somehow managed to convey both humility and absolute confidence. Then, moving with deliberate slowness, he raised his hands. The security team's sensors registered no energy weapons powering up, no technological threats activating. What they did register, to their growing alarm, was a subtle shift in the human's bioelectric field, a focusing of energy that their equipment couldn't properly categorize. "In our tradition," Master Chen said, his voice carrying to every corner of the arena, "we demonstrate the unity of mind, body, and spirit through the ancient art of breaking." He gestured to one side of the platform, where several humans were arranging objects. Concrete blocks, each one clearly dense and solid. Metal bars. Thick wooden boards. Objects that would require significant technological assistance to break or destroy. "These materials," Master Chen continued, "represent the obstacles we face in life. Fear, doubt, limitation. Through proper training, proper focus, and proper application of human potential, all obstacles can be overcome." Sergeant Kickstar activated his scanner, focusing on the objects being arranged. His readings confirmed what his eyes were telling him: solid concrete, reinforced steel, hardwood timber. Materials that would require plasma cutters or molecular disruptors to break efficiently. The human called Master Chen approached the first obstacle, a stack of concrete blocks, each one several inches thick. He positioned himself carefully, his breathing becoming deep and rhythmic. The arena remained absolutely silent. Then, without any visible technological assistance, without any weapons, using nothing but his bare hand, Master Chen struck downward. The sound was like thunder. The concrete blocks, all 6 of them, split cleanly in half with a single blow. The coalition security team's sensors went wild, trying to detect the concealed weapon that must have been used. Energy readings spiked and faded. Their equipment registered the tremendous force of the impact enough to shatter reinforced concrete, but could find no technological source for that force. Master Chen moved to the next obstacle. Steel bars, each one thick enough to withstand significant technological assault. Again, the careful positioning, the controlled breathing, the moment of absolute stillness. His hand moved in a precise, chopping motion. The steel bars, 3 of them, bent and snapped as if they were made of brittle plastic. Sergeant Kickstar's combat experience kicked in. His hand moved instinctively toward his weapon, not out of aggression but out of the sudden, overwhelming realization that he was witnessing something far beyond his understanding. These readings were impossible. No biological organism could generate that kind of kinetic force without technological enhancement. But his sensors were clear. No technology. No hidden weapons. No energy sources beyond the human's own bioelectric field. Ambassador Telvac found himself taking an involuntary step backward. His diplomatic training had prepared him for many scenarios, but not for this. In his mind, he was rapidly recalculating everything they thought they knew about human capabilities. Master Chen approached the final demonstration. A thick wooden board, held vertically by 2 assistants. This time, instead of using his hands, he positioned himself several feet away. The final demonstration, he announced, represents the projection of focused energy beyond the physical body. He drew back his leg, his entire body coiling like a spring. Every human in the arena seemed to hold their breath. The coalition delegates found themselves doing the same, drawn into the moment despite their growing alarm. Master Chen's leg snapped forward in a kick that never actually touched the wooden board. His foot stopped 6 inches short of the target. The board exploded into fragments. Sergeant Kickstar's training took over completely. His weapon was in his hand before he consciously decided to draw it, his shield generator activating automatically. Around him, his team responded with similar speed, their own weapons powering up. But Master Chen hadn't moved. He stood calmly in the center of the platform, his hands at his sides, watching the coalition forces with the same intelligent awareness he'd shown from the beginning. "Your weapons are impressive," he said quietly, his voice somehow still carrying clearly despite the energy weapons now trained on him. "But, you seem troubled by our demonstration. Perhaps our cultural practices are more different than we initially assumed." Ambassador Telvac found his voice, though it came out higher than he intended. "How? How did you generate that kind of force without technology?" Master Chen smiled, an expression that somehow managed to be both peaceful and predatory at the same time. "We have trained our bodies and minds to work in harmony. What you call technology, we call focus. What you call weapons, we call discipline." He gestured to the crowd around them, and, for the first time, the coalition team truly looked at the assembled humans. 20,000 of them, all watching calmly, all sitting with the same balanced posture, the same alert awareness. "Every person in this arena," Master Chen continued, "has studied these arts to some degree. Some for a few months, others for decades. But, all of them understand the fundamental truth that you seem to have forgotten in your technological advancement." "What truth?" Telvac whispered. "That the most powerful weapon in the universe is not something you carry," Master Chen said, his eyes moving deliberately from one coalition delegate to another. "It is something you become." The implications hit the security team like a physical blow. 20,000 humans. All trained. All capable of generating kinetic force that could shatter concrete and bend steel. All sitting quietly, watching, waiting. And, if this was just a demonstration, if this was just their cultural practice, what did their actual military capabilities look like? Sergeant Kickstar's tactical mind was already running calculations. His energy weapons were designed to handle threats up to a certain level. His shields could deflect most known weapons. But, what did you do against an enemy who could project force without technology, who could break through barriers using nothing but their own bodies? How did you fight an army of 20,000 warriors who needed no weapons, no equipment, no supply lines, just themselves? Master Chen seemed to read his thoughts. "Perhaps," he suggested gently, "we should schedule a more comprehensive cultural exchange. There is much your people could learn about human potential, just as there is much we could learn about galactic civilization." Ambassador Telvac nodded shakily, his diplomatic protocol struggling to process what he'd witnessed. "Yes," he managed. Yes, I think that would be wise. As the coalition delegation prepared to leave, each member carrying with them the memory of concrete shattering under bare hands and steel bending to focused will, none of them noticed the subtle signals passing between the humans in the arena. Hand gestures too quick for alien eyes to follow. Positions shifting with precision that spoke of military coordination. The quiet discipline of 20,000 warriors who had just demonstrated the tiniest fraction of what human beings were truly capable of. The galaxy was about to discover that Earth's greatest export wasn't technology, resources, or knowledge. It was something far more dangerous, the unlimited potential of the human spirit, refined through discipline and forged in the fires of ancient wisdom. And, in the depths of space, aboard his flagship, Commander Zexhal was about to receive a report that would change everything the Coalition thought they knew about power, warfare, and the small blue planet that had just requested membership in their galactic community. The emergency session aboard the Coalition flagship began exactly 47 minutes after the diplomatic team's return from Earth's surface. Commander Zexhal had seen many things in his military career: plasma storms that could vaporize entire fleets, energy beings that existed in pure quantum states, civilizations that had learned to manipulate time itself. None of it had prepared him for Sergeant Kickstar's report. "Repeat that last part," Zexhal commanded, his voice carefully controlled. Around the conference table sat his senior staff, all of them studying the recorded footage from the Earth mission with expressions ranging from disbelief to outright alarm. Sergeant Kickstar, a warrior who had faced down energy cannons without flinching, seemed oddly shaken as he consulted his notes. The human subject generated approximately 12,000 pounds of kinetic force per square inch using only his bare hand. Our sensors confirmed no technological assistance of any kind. "That's impossible," declared Chief Science Officer Lanera, her crystalline features reflecting the harsh light of the ship's emergency illumination. As a member of the silicon-based Zarathi, her people had long ago transcended biological limitations through technological integration. "No organic tissue can generate that level of force without mechanical amplification." "I've reviewed the sensor logs myself," Kickstar replied grimly. "The readings are accurate." Dr. Velmon, the ship's xenobiologist, leaned forward with interest. His people, the Chulari, were among the most advanced researchers in the galaxy, having mapped the genetic structures of over 10,000 species. "Perhaps there's something unique about human physiology that we missed in our initial scans. Enhanced bone density, modified muscle fiber, some form of natural biotechnology?" "Negative," Kickstar said, pulling up additional data on the central display. "We ran full biological scans during the demonstration. Standard human physiology across all parameters. No genetic modifications, no technological implants, no exotic materials in their biological structure." The room fell silent as the implications sank in. Admiral Torvax, Zexhal's second-in-command, was the first to voice what they were all thinking. If their basic physiology is standard, then the force generation must be technique-based. Some form of combat methodology that amplifies natural capabilities beyond normal parameters. "That's what concerns me most," Kickstar continued. "This wasn't just one individual. Our scans of the arena showed that approximately 60% of the assembled humans demonstrated similar bioelectric signatures. They weren't just watching, they were resonating with the demonstration, as if they understood exactly what was being done and how to do it themselves." Commander Zexhal studied the tactical display showing Earth's continental masses. "How many humans did you estimate were in that arena?" 20,000, sir." "And 60% showed similar signatures?" "Approximately 12,000 individuals, yes sir." The mathematics were staggering. If 12,000 humans in one location could demonstrate such capabilities, what did that suggest about their total population? Earth's census data indicated over 8 billion inhabitants. "I want a full analysis," Zexhal ordered. "Deploy stealth reconnaissance drones to major population centers. Focus on any facilities that appear to be training-related. I want to know the scope of what we're dealing with." 3 hours later, the reports began coming in, and each one made the situation more unsettling. "Sir," Lieutenant Mordin announced, his voice tight with stress. "Initial drone reconnaissance has identified over 50,000 facilities worldwide that appear to be dedicated to unarmed combat training." 50,000? Admiral Torvax repeated. That's just the preliminary count. Drones are detecting training facilities in virtually every human population center. Some are large complexes that can accommodate thousands of trainees, others are smaller local facilities. But they're everywhere. Dr. Velmon pulled up comparative data on his personal display. For reference, the entire Veltar military maintains approximately 1,200 training facilities across our 17 homeworlds. The humans appear to have more training centers on one planet than we have in our entire empire. The central display shifted to show footage captured by the reconnaissance drones. Humans of all ages, children barely large enough to walk, adults in the prime of life, elderly individuals who should have been long past their physical peak, all engaged in systematic training. But it wasn't just the scale that disturbed the coalition officers. It was the precision. "Look at this footage from Tokyo," Mordin said, highlighting a particular feed. "This facility houses approximately 3,000 trainees. Watch their morning session." The drones had captured the beginning of what appeared to be a daily routine. 3,000 humans moving in perfect synchronization, performing complex sequences of movements that demonstrated balance, coordination, and body control that defied standard biological expectations. "Now watch this," Mordin continued, switching to another feed. Beijing. 5,000 trainees, completely different style, but similar precision. The pattern repeated across every major population center. Moscow, London, Sao Paulo, Mumbai, Lagos. Each city contained multiple facilities, each facility contained hundreds or thousands of humans, and each human demonstrated capabilities that challenged everything the coalition thought they knew about biological limitations. "What are they training for?" Admiral Torvex asked quietly. Chief Science Officer Lanera had been running calculations on her personal system. "Based on the distribution patterns and population percentages, I estimate that between 2 and 3 billion humans have received some level of formal unarmed combat training." The conference room fell silent. 2 to 3 billion. That was larger than the combined military forces of the entire coalition. "It gets worse," Sergeant Kickstar said, pulling up additional sensor data. "During our surface mission, I conducted passive scans on the humans we interacted with directly. Their bioelectric patterns suggest that what we witnessed was not their maximum capability." "Explain," Zexal commanded. The human who performed the braking demonstration, Master Chenwei, was operating at approximately 30% of his measurable bioelectric potential. "He was holding back, sir. Significantly." Dr. Velmon's research instincts kicked in. "That suggests a level of control and restraint that implies extensive training and discipline. They weren't showing us what they could do, they were showing us what they were comfortable revealing." The tactical implications were staggering. If the demonstration they'd witnessed represented only a fraction of human capabilities, and if billions of humans possessed such training, then Earth represented a military potential unlike anything the Coalition had ever encountered. "Sir," Communications Officer Rezik announced, "we're receiving a transmission from Earth's surface. They're requesting a follow-up meeting to discuss what they term deeper cultural exchange." Zexal considered his options. Standard first contact protocols called for a gradual integration process, technology transfers, trade negotiations, eventual military cooperation agreements. But those protocols assumed they were dealing with a species that fit within known parameters. "What's the nature of their proposed cultural exchange?" he asked. Rezik consulted her communications log. "They're offering to provide what they call basic training opportunities for interested coalition personnel. They describe it as an introduction to human physical and mental discipline techniques." The offer was unprecedented. Most species guarded their military secrets carefully, especially during first contact situations. Either the humans were extraordinarily naive about galactic politics, or they were extraordinarily confident in their capabilities. "There's more, sir," Rezik continued. "They've also requested permission to send a small cultural delegation to visit our ship. They want to learn about coalition military traditions and practices." Admiral Torvex leaned back in his chair, his expression thoughtful. "They want to study us just as much as we want to study them. The question," said Chief Science Officer Lanera, "is whether we're prepared for what we might learn." Commander Zexhal made his decision. "Signal Earth." Inform them that we accept both proposals. A limited exchange, 5 of our personnel will participate in their training program, and we'll welcome 5 of their representatives aboard our ship. Sir, Sergeant Kickstar interjected, with respect, allowing humans aboard this vessel given what we've observed might constitute a security risk. Everything about this situation constitutes a security risk, Sergeant. But we need intelligence, and this appears to be the only way to get it. Besides, Zexal added with a slight smile, our ship's security systems are designed to handle threats up to and including planetary-level energy weapons. Surely we can manage 5 unarmed humans. The irony of that statement would become apparent within hours. The human delegation arrived via a small transport vessel that was, like everything else about their species, deceptively simple. No energy weapons, no advanced shielding, no exotic propulsion systems, just efficient, practical engineering that got the job done without unnecessary complexity. The 5 humans who boarded the Coalition flagship were a diverse group, representing what their leader explained were different traditional fighting systems from various regions of Earth. Their spokesperson was a woman named Sarah Chen, apparently related to the Master Chen they'd met during the surface demonstration, though she appeared to be from a different generation. We appreciate the opportunity to learn about Coalition military practices, she said as the group was escorted to temporary quarters. Our own traditions emphasize the importance of understanding different approaches to conflict and cooperation. She was smaller than most Coalition personnel, as were all the humans. But there was something in the way they moved through the ship's corridors that made seasoned warriors step aside without quite understanding why. The humans' first request was simple: permission to visit the ship's gymnasium facilities to continue their daily training routines. We maintain strict physical and mental discipline, explained one of the delegation members, a man named James Morrison who appeared to represent a Western fighting tradition. Interrupting our training schedules can have negative effects on our psychological balance. The request seemed reasonable. The ship's gymnasium was equipped with standard exercise equipment and sparring facilities used by Coalition personnel to maintain combat readiness. What harm could 5 humans do in a supervised environment? The first indication that something was wrong came from Gym Supervisor Kolvash, a massive Thoraxian whose people were among the physically strongest in the galaxy. Commander, his voice came over the internal communications system, tight with confusion, you need to see this. Zexal arrived at the gymnasium to find his supervisor standing outside the main training area, staring through the transparent aluminum viewing panel with an expression of complete bewilderment. Inside the gymnasium, the 5 humans were conducting what they called their basic warm-up routine. They had rearranged the equipment, not damaged it, not destroyed it, simply moved it into new configurations that somehow made more sense than the original layout. Gravity-enhanced weight machines that normally required technological assistance to operate were being used as simple resistance tools. Combat dummies designed to withstand energy weapon impacts were being used for precision striking practice. But it was the movements themselves that had captured Kolvash's attention. The humans flowed through complex sequences that demonstrated perfect balance, timing, and spatial awareness. They moved like dancers, but every motion had a purpose that spoke to deadly efficiency. How long have they been doing this? Zexal asked. 47 minutes, Kolvash replied. No breaks, no signs of fatigue. And, Commander, they're not even breathing hard. As they watched, one of the humans, the woman Sarah Chen, approached a piece of equipment that Zexal recognized as a kinetic force generator. It was designed to test the striking power of various Coalition species, with measurements ranging from the relatively weak Ashanti up to the incredibly powerful Kronari. Sarah positioned herself carefully, her stance balanced and precise. She drew back her fist, paused for a moment of perfect stillness, then struck. The force generator's display lit up with readings that made Kolvash stumble backward in shock. That's impossible, he whispered. The display showed a kinetic force measurement that exceeded anything Zexal had ever seen. Not just beyond human parameters, beyond anything in the Coalition database. Sarachan looked up at the viewing panel, made eye contact with Commander Zexal, and smiled. It wasn't a threatening expression, but it was knowing. She was aware they were watching, aware of their shock, and completely comfortable with both facts. She gestured to her companions, and, one by one, each human approached the force generator. One by one, each generated readings that shattered previous records. Call the senior staff, Zexhel said quietly. Emergency session. Now. As he walked away from the gymnasium, one thought echoed in his mind with growing certainty: they had made contact with a species that possessed capabilities far beyond anything in the Coalition's experience. And the humans were just getting started. The Coalition training facility on Earth's surface looked ordinary enough from the outside. Located in the mountains of Tibet, it resembled the traditional monasteries that dotted the region, with simple stone buildings and wooden structures that seemed to grow naturally from the landscape. Only the discrete energy signatures detected by orbital sensors revealed that this particular monastery had been modified with Coalition technology to accommodate their personnel. Lieutenant Mordin stood at the entrance to what the humans called the Basic Preparation Hall, trying to calm his nerves. As one of the 5 Coalition volunteers selected for the Cultural Exchange Program, he had undergone extensive briefings about human martial arts, reviewed countless hours of recorded demonstrations, and received medical modifications to help his forearmed physiology adapt to human training methods. Nothing had prepared him for the reality. The hall itself was vast, easily capable of accommodating several hundred trainees. The floor was covered in what the humans called tatami mats, simple woven material that provided cushioning and grip. No technology was visible anywhere. No energy weapons, no training simulators, no gravitational field generators. Just space, light, and the subtle scent of incense burning in small alcoves around the perimeter. Approximately 60 humans were present, ranging in apparent age from teenagers to individuals who appeared to be well past their species' prime years. All wore simple clothing, loose-fitting garments that allowed for freedom of movement without being encumbered by armor or technological enhancements. At the far end of the hall stood Master Chen Wei, the same human who had demonstrated concrete breaking during first contact. Today, however, he appeared different. Where before he had seemed impressive, now he radiated an aura of controlled power that made Mordin's predatory instincts twitch with alarm. Beside Mordin stood his fellow volunteers, Sergeant Kickstar, whose military experience made him the obvious choice for combat training, Dr. Velmon, whose scientific curiosity about human capabilities had volunteered him for biological monitoring, Technician Yarsol, whose engineering background might help understand the physics of human techniques, and Specialist Quindar, an intelligence officer whose job was to assess the tactical implications of what they learned. "Welcome," Master Chen said, his voice carrying clearly across the hall despite speaking at conversational volume. "Today you begin your introduction to what we call the internal arts, the cultivation of power that comes from within rather than from external tools." He approached the Coalition group, his movements so fluid that it seemed almost like floating rather than walking. "Before we begin, you must understand something fundamental about our approach to training. In your civilizations, you have learned to extend your capabilities through technology. We have learned to extend our capabilities through discipline." Dr. Velmont activated his scanner discreetly, focusing on Master Chen as he spoke. The readings were identical to those they'd recorded during first contact: standard human physiology, no technological enhancements, no exotic materials. Yet the bioelectric patterns were unlike anything in the Coalition database. "Your first lesson," Master Chen continued, "will be learning to sense the energy that flows through all living things. We call it many names: chi, ki, prana, life force, but the principle remains constant. Everything alive generates and channels energy. Most beings remain unaware of this energy throughout their lives. We have learned not only to sense it, but to direct it." The human gestured to the assembled trainees, and they moved into formation with precise, coordinated efficiency. No verbal commands were given, no technological communication devices used, yet 60 humans arranged themselves into perfect rows with military precision. "Observe," Master Chen said simply. The humans began moving in unison, performing what appeared to be a slow, graceful dance. Their movements were synchronized to a degree that seemed impossible without technological coordination. Arms rising and falling, legs shifting, bodies turning, all in perfect harmony. But Dr. Velmon's scanners were detecting something extraordinary. Each human's bioelectric field was resonating with the others, creating a harmonic pattern that amplified individual energy signatures. "How?" Specialist Quindar whispered, his intelligence training recognizing the tactical implications of such coordination. "Practice," Master Chen replied, having somehow heard the whisper despite standing 20 feet away. 10 years of daily training to achieve basic synchronization. 20 years to achieve mastery. Some of these students have been training for 40 years or more. 40 years. Lieutenant Morden tried to wrap his mind around the concept. Most coalition military personnel served for 15 to 20 years total. These humans spent 40 years just learning basic coordination techniques. Your turn, Master Chen said, approaching the coalition volunteers. We will begin with the most fundamental exercise, learning to stand. Sergeant Kickstar almost laughed. Stand? We've all been standing since we arrived. Master Chen smiled, an expression that somehow conveyed both amusement and profound knowledge. You have been balancing. There is a difference. Watch. He positioned himself in what appeared to be a simple standing posture. Feet shoulder-width apart, knees slightly bent, spine straight, arms at his sides. Nothing complex, nothing that seemed to require special training. Then, something changed. Morden couldn't identify exactly what, but, suddenly, Master Chen seemed more solid, more present, as if he had somehow increased his connection to the ground beneath him. Technician Yarsol, Master Chen called. Please approach and attempt to move me. Yarsol, whose people possessed significant physical strength, stepped forward confidently. As an engineer, he understood leverage and force application. Moving a human who probably weighed less than half what he did should be simple. He placed his hands on Master Chen's shoulders and pushed. Nothing happened. He increased the force, then increased it again. Master Chen remained perfectly still, as if he had become part of the floor itself. Interesting, Yarsol muttered, repositioning for better leverage. He applied force from different angles, tried lifting techniques, even attempted to unbalance the human by attacking his base support. Master Chen didn't budge. More concerning, he didn't appear to be straining to resist Yarsol's efforts. His breathing remained calm, his expression peaceful, his posture unchanged. How? Dr. Velmon asked, studying his scanner readings. The force vectors should have displaced you easily. I am not resisting your friend's efforts, Master Chen explained. I am redirecting them. The energy he applies flows through me into the ground. This is the foundation of all our arts, learning to work with natural forces rather than against them. He gestured for Yarsol to step back, then addressed the coalition group. Now you will learn to stand. It will take several months to achieve basic competency. Several months. To learn to stand. The implications were staggering. The next 4 hours redefined everything the coalition volunteers thought they knew about physical training. Under Master Chen's patient guidance, they learned that every movement they thought they understood was inefficient, every stance they considered proper was unstable, every technique they had mastered was crude. Your people have developed powerful technologies, Master Chen explained during a brief rest period. But, in doing so, you have forgotten how to use your own bodies effectively. You wear armor instead of developing natural protection. You carry weapons instead of becoming weapons. You rely on shields instead of learning to redirect attacks. Sergeant Kickstar, whose military background made him the most receptive to physical training, was struggling with what the humans called basic breathing techniques. This is impossible, he said, frustration evident in his voice. How can the way I breathe affect my physical capabilities? Master Chen approached a training dummy, a simple wooden post wrapped in rope and canvas. Your people's combat training focuses on applying maximum force to overwhelm defenses, correct? Essentially, yes. Watch. Master Chen positioned himself beside the dummy, his stance casual, almost relaxed. He placed his palm against the wooden surface and appeared to do nothing at all. The dummy exploded. Not broke, not cracked, exploded. Pieces of wood and rope scattered across the training floor, leaving only a splintered base attached to the floor mounting. Dr. Velmon's scanner showed the energy signature of the impact, force levels that should have been impossible for human physiology to generate. What did you do? I breathed, Master Chen said simply. Proper breathing allows proper circulation of internal energy. Proper circulation allows proper focus. Proper focus allows proper technique. The demonstration continued throughout the afternoon. Humans demonstrating capabilities that challenged every assumption about biological limitations. An elderly woman who appeared to be well past her physical prime threw a young male trainee across the training hall using only a gentle touch to his wrist. A teenager barely old enough for coalition military service lifted a stone weight that required mechanical assistance for most species to move. But it was the mental aspects that proved most disturbing to the coalition observers. Your training emphasizes individual excellence, Master Chun explained as he guided them through meditation exercises. Each warrior seeks to maximize their personal capabilities. Our training emphasizes unity of purpose. Individual excellence serves the collective good. Specialist Quindar recognized the strategic implications immediately. You're describing a form of collective consciousness. Not consciousness, Master Chen corrected. Awareness. When properly trained, a group of martial artists can respond to threats with the coordination of a single organism while maintaining individual creativity and judgment. The demonstration that followed would haunt Quindar's reports for months afterward. 20 humans, moving through complex combat sequences against multiple opponents, responding to attacks and opportunities with a level of coordination that seemed telepathic. No verbal communication, no visible signals, yet perfect teamwork that adapted fluidly to changing circumstances. How many humans possess this level of training? Dr. Velmon asked as the session concluded. Master Chen considered the question carefully. Full mastery requires decades of dedication and is achieved by relatively few. But basic competency, the level you witness today, is possessed by approximately 1 billion of our people. 1 billion. The number echoed in the minds of all 5 coalition volunteers. 1 billion humans with capabilities that exceeded anything in their military databases. Why? Sergeant Kickstar asked. Why develop these abilities when you have other means of defense? Master Chen's expression grew thoughtful. Because technology can fail. Weapons can be destroyed. Equipment can malfunction. But a properly trained mind and body are always available, always reliable. He paused, then added something that would prove prophetic, and because true strength comes not from what you can destroy, but from what you can protect. As the coalition volunteers prepared to leave for the day, each carrying with them a new understanding of human potential, they were unaware that similar training was occurring in thousands of facilities across Earth's surface. They didn't know about the advanced schools where master-level practitioners demonstrated capabilities that made their day's observations seem elementary. They had no idea about the military applications of these techniques, or the strategic doctrine that guided Earth's approach to galactic integration. But they were beginning to understand one crucial fact: humanity represented something unprecedented in galactic civilization. A species that had chosen to develop their own potential rather than simply build better tools. And, as reports of their training experiences reached Coalition Command, military strategists across the galaxy began asking the same question: what did you do when you encountered an enemy who didn't need weapons because they had become weapons themselves? The answer to that question would reshape the balance of power in ways none of them could yet imagine. The crisis began 3 weeks after the cultural exchange program had started, in a region of space that had been peaceful for over 2 centuries. The hegemony of Kroth, a militant empire that had been contained through careful coalition diplomacy and strategic positioning, suddenly launched a full-scale assault on the border systems. Commander Zexal received the emergency transmission while reviewing the latest reports from his volunteers on Earth's surface. The news was grim: 17 coalition colonies under attack, 6 major fleet elements engaged in desperate holding actions, and hegemony forces demonstrating new weapon technologies that were proving devastatingly effective against coalition defenses. Sir, Admiral Torvex announced as he entered the command center, we're receiving orders to abandon the Earth assignment and report immediately to Sector Command. The entire 7th Fleet is being mobilized. Zexal studied the tactical displays showing the scope of the hegemony assault. It was clearly a coordinated campaign that had been years in planning, timed to strike at the coalition's weakest points simultaneously. Status of our personnel on Earth's surface? Lieutenant Morden and his team can be retrieved within 6 hours. The human delegation aboard our ship. Torvex paused. They've requested permission to speak with you directly about the current situation. They know about the crisis? Apparently human monitoring systems are more sophisticated than we initially assessed. They detected our emergency communications and conducted their own analysis of the situation. Zexal found the 5 human delegates in the ship's primary briefing room, gathered around a holographic display that showed the current tactical situation with disturbing accuracy. Sarah Chen looked up as he entered, her expression serious. "Commander," she said without preamble, "our governments have been monitoring the situation through our own intelligence networks. We'd like to offer assistance." The offer was absurd on multiple levels. Earth wasn't even officially a coalition member yet, their military technology was centuries behind galactic standards, and they had no space-based assets capable of influencing battles fought across multiple star systems. "Ms. Chen," Zexal replied diplomatically, "while we appreciate the sentiment, this is a conflict involving energy weapons and fleet actions that are somewhat beyond primitive human capabilities?" James Morrison interrupted, his voice carrying a note of dry humor. "Commander, with respect, I think you may be operating under some incorrect assumptions about human military doctrine." Sarah Chen activated her personal communicator, a device so simple that coalition scanners had initially dismissed it as a basic civilian tool. "Earth Command, this is Cultural Exchange Team Alpha. Please transmit current operational readiness status to Coalition Command frequency." The response came immediately, not through the ship's communication systems but through every electronic device in the briefing room simultaneously. Even the Coalition's secured military channels carried the transmission, despite their encryption protocols. "Exchange Team Alpha, this is Admiral Sarah Martinez, Earth Defense Command. Operational readiness as follows: Terrafleet fully deployed and standing by. Marshal Division units at 97% readiness across all theaters. Deep reconnaissance assets have completed preliminary assessment of hegemony tactical doctrine. We are prepared to provide immediate assistance upon coalition request." Zexal stared at the communication display. "Terrafleet? Admiral Martinez? Ms. Chen, our intelligence indicates that Earth has no significant space-based military assets." Sarah Chen smiled, the same knowing expression her relative had worn during the initial demonstration. "Commander, you've been observing our training facilities and cultural practices. You haven't been observing our military capabilities." The main display activated, showing tactical information that made everyone in the room step back in shock. Detailed intelligence on hegemony fleet movements, weapon specifications, strategic objectives, information that would have taken coalition intelligence weeks to gather. "How did you obtain this data?" Admiral Torvax demanded. "Master Chen," Sarah said, addressing one of her companions, a quiet man who had spoken very little during their time aboard the ship. "Perhaps you should explain your background to our hosts." The man bowed slightly, a gesture that somehow conveyed both respect and absolute confidence. "Commander Zexal, I am Master Chen Dao, late of the People's Liberation Army Space Force. I have been observing your enemy's operations for the past 18 months. Observing how? In person. The implications hit Zexal like a physical blow. You infiltrated hegemony space? I lived there. Worked among their military units. Learned their language, their customs, their tactical doctrines. The hegemony has been planning this offensive for 3 years. They believe coalition forces lack the discipline and unity necessary to mount effective resistance." Dr. Velmon, who had been silent throughout the exchange, finally found his voice. "You're saying that humans have been conducting covert intelligence operations in hegemony space for over a year?" "Not just intelligence," James Morrison said. "Preparation. We've been studying galactic military doctrine for decades, ever since our deep space observations confirmed the existence of advanced civilizations. When first contact finally occurred, we were ready." Sarah Chen moved to the display controls, and, suddenly, the tactical information expanded to show something that redefined everything. Fleet positions throughout hegemony space, supply line vulnerabilities, command structure analysis, intelligence that was impossibly detailed and current. "The question," Sarah said, turning to face Zexal directly, "is whether the coalition is prepared to accept human assistance in resolving this crisis." "What kind of assistance?" Zexal asked, though he was beginning to suspect he wouldn't like the answer. "Direct action," Master Chen Dao replied. "Hegemony forces excel at conventional warfare, but they have no experience with unconventional tactics. Their ships are heavily armed and well defended, but their personnel are not prepared for close-quarters combat against properly trained opponents. The suggestion was ludicrous.
Master Chen, starship combat doesn't involve hand-to-hand fighting.
It's conducted at distances measured in thousands of kilometers using energy weapons and guided missiles.
That's correct, Sarah Chen agreed.
Under normal circumstances.
But what happens when those energy weapons and missiles are no longer functional? Before Zexal could ask what she meant, alarms began sounding throughout the ship. Emergency lights activated as Tactical Officer Renzal announced from the bridge, "Commander, we're detecting hegemony ships approaching our position. 3 heavy cruisers, bearing 27 Mark IV. Impossible, Admiral Torvex said.
This is neutral space. The hegemony has no military presence in this sector. Sarah Chen was already moving toward the exit, her 4 companions falling into formation behind her. Commander, you're about to discover that the hegemony has been tracking your ship since you arrived at Earth.
They view human integration into the coalition as a potential threat to their expansion plans.
The ship shuddered as energy weapons impacted their shields. Zexal activated the general alarm and headed for the bridge, the humans following despite his orders for them to remain in secure quarters. The bridge was chaos. 3 hegemony heavy cruisers had dropped out of hyperspace at close range, their weapons already firing. The coalition flagship's shields were holding, but energy readings indicated the attacking ships were using some form of enhanced weaponry that was draining defensive power faster than normal.
Return fire, Zexal ordered. All weapons, full power.
Energy cannons erupted from the coalition ship, striking the lead hegemony cruiser with enough force to vaporize a small moon.
The enemy shields absorbed the impact with barely a flicker.
Sir, Weapons Officer Koldat reported, their defensive systems are operating at efficiency levels beyond our database parameters.
Our weapons are having minimal effect.
The ship shuddered again as more enemy fire struck home. Shield strength was dropping rapidly, and tactical analysis suggested they would be overwhelmed within minutes.
Commander, Sarah Chen said quietly, request permission to implement human tactical doctrine.
Which is what, exactly? Board their ships.
The suggestion was so far outside standard military thinking that Zexal almost dismissed it immediately.
Boarding actions were relics of ancient warfare, useful only when capturing vessels for salvage value. Modern combat was conducted at ranges that made such tactics impossible. Miss Chen, even if we could somehow get close enough to board those ships, they have crews of thousands. 5 humans, no matter how skilled, cannot 50 humans, Master Chindao corrected.
My ship has been tracking this engagement. We're prepared for immediate deployment. Your ship?
The answer came from the tactical display as a new contact appeared, something small, fast, and apparently invisible to conventional sensors until it chose to reveal itself. The vessel was clearly of human origin, sleek and efficient like everything else about their technology. This is Captain Lu Wei, 3rd Human Deep Strike Squadron, a voice announced over communication channels that, once again, penetrated coalition encryption as if it didn't exist.
Request permission to assist in current engagement. Captain Lu, Sarah Chen responded, authorization granted for boarding action. Standard rules of engagement. Confirmed. Boarding pods launching in 30 seconds.
The bridge crew watched in amazement as the human vessel moved with impossible agility, accelerating toward the hegemony ships at speeds that should have liquefied any biological crew. Small craft separated from the main vessel boarding pods that were somehow avoiding the intense defensive fire from 3 heavy cruisers.
How are they penetrating the defensive screens? Admiral Torvex asked. They're not penetrating them, Master Chindao replied. They're riding them.
The explanation came as they watched the human boarding pods use the energy from hegemony weapons fire to accelerate and change course, surfing the enemy's own defensive systems to reach their targets. Impossible, Tactical Officer Runzel whispered. Difficult, Master Chindao corrected. But achievable with proper training and preparation. The first boarding pod attached to the lead hegemony cruiser, followed by 2 more. Within moments, the cruiser's weapons fire became sporadic, then ceased entirely.
What are they doing over there? Zexal demanded.
Sarah Chen consulted her personal communicator, receiving reports in real time from the boarding teams.
Standard human boarding protocol. Neutralize crew resistance, secure critical systems, establish command authority. Neutralize how?
The answer came through the ship's communication system as the hegemony commander attempted to contact his remaining vessels. His transmission was intercepted and broadcast, revealing panic, confusion, and something that sounded like fear.
Unknown attackers have breached multiple decks. Weapons systems offline. Engineering secured by enemy forces. Request immediate assistance. These attackers, they're not using weapons. They're using their bodies. We can't stop them. We can't even slow them down.
The second hegemony cruiser stopped firing as additional boarding pods reached their target. The third attempted to withdraw, but human ships, apparently an entire squadron that had been invisible until they chose to reveal themselves, surrounded the retreating vessel with coordinated precision.
Commander, Saracen said, the immediate threat has been neutralized.
Hegemony crews are being secured and their vessels will be available for coalition intelligence analysis. Zexal looked at the tactical display showing 3 hegemony heavy cruisers, all with their weapons offline, all under human control.
The entire engagement had taken less than 15 minutes.
How many casualties? He asked, expecting to hear about the terrible losses that such a boarding action must have cost.
None, Saracen replied. Human doctrine emphasizes minimal necessary force. Hegemony personnel were rendered unconscious through pressure point techniques.
They'll recover with no permanent effects.
No casualties.
50 humans had captured 3 heavy cruisers and their crews of several thousand without killing anyone. The question now, Master Chendao said, is whether the coalition is ready to learn about human strategic doctrine for dealing with the larger hegemony offensive.
Admiral Torbeck stared at the display showing captured enemy vessels. What exactly are you proposing?
Complete victory, Saracen replied simply. The hegemony has made the mistake of believing that superior technology guarantees military success. They're about to learn the difference between having power and knowing how to use it. As reports began coming in about human operations throughout the war zone, hegemony supply lines disrupted by infiltration teams, command centers captured by boarding actions, entire fleets neutralized by tactical approaches that no galactic military had ever conceived of, Commander Zexal began to understand the true implications of humanity's request for coalition membership.
They weren't asking to be protected by galactic civilization. They were offering to protect it.
6 months after the hegemony crisis, the Coalition Senate convened for what would later be remembered as the most significant session in galactic history. Representatives from 400 civilizations gathered on the neutral world of Sanctuary Prime to address a question that challenged the fundamental assumptions of interstellar society. What do you do when the most primitive species in the galaxy proves to be its most formidable military power? Senator Veltash of the Corridan Republic called the session to order, her voice carrying across the vast amphitheater where delegates sat in carefully arranged sections according to their species' environmental requirements. The formal agenda listed 17 items for consideration, but everyone present knew they were really here to discuss one thing, the human question. Before we begin formal proceedings, Senator Veltash announced, the chair recognizes Admiral Zexal of the Coalition Defense Force to present the official military assessment of recent events. Zexal rose from the military advisors section, still carrying himself with the bearing of a career officer, though the events of recent months had fundamentally changed his understanding of what military power truly meant. Senators, the defeat of the hegemony offensive was achieved through tactics and strategies that challenged every assumption our military academies teach about modern warfare. The holographic display activated, showing statistical data that still seemed impossible even months later. Human forces, operating with coalition support, neutralized 17 hegemony battle fleets, captured over 300 military installations, and secured the surrender of their entire government.
Total hegemony casualties, 0. Total human casualties, 0. Total coalition casualties during joint operations, 0.
A murmur ran through the assembled delegates. 0 casualties in a war that had threatened to devastate the coalition meant more than just military efficiency, it suggested capabilities that transcended conventional understanding of conflict. The strategic implications, Zexal continued, require us to completely reassess our approach to galactic security. Human military doctrine appears to be based on principles that no other civilization has developed or even considered. Senator Morcath of the hegemony's former territories, now under coalition protection pending political restructuring, requested recognition.
Admiral, what exactly did human forces do that conventional military action could not achieve? Zexal consulted his notes, though the details had been burned into his memory.
They infiltrated rather than assaulted.
They captured rather than destroyed. They neutralized opposition through precise application of non-lethal force rather than overwhelming firepower.
Most significantly, they treated military conflict as a problem to be solved rather than an enemy to be defeated. The distinction was profound. While coalition forces had fought to win battles, human forces had fought to end the war. Their strategic objective hadn't been military victory but long-term peace, achieved through methods that left former enemies capable of becoming future allies. The former hegemony leadership, Zexal noted, has formally requested inclusion in expanded cultural exchange programs. They wish to learn human conflict resolution techniques. Senator Yardin of the Ashanti Confederation raised a concern that many delegates shared. While we appreciate human effectiveness in resolving the hegemony crisis, we must address the broader implications. We are discussing a species that possesses military capabilities beyond our understanding, operating with technology that appears primitive but achieves results our most advanced systems cannot match. The fear underlying her words was clear. If humans could defeat the hegemony so completely, what did that mean for every other civilization in the galaxy? With respect, a new voice interrupted, I think you may be approaching this question from an incorrect perspective. All eyes turned to the human delegation section, where Earth's representative to the Coalition Senate was rising to address the assembly. Dr. Maria Santos, former professor of international relations and, now humanity's primary diplomatic spokesperson, moved to the central podium with the same fluid efficiency that characterized everything about human culture. Senators, Dr. Santos began, I understand your concerns about human military capabilities. But, I would like to suggest that you're asking the wrong question. Senator Veltash leaned forward with interest. What do you believe is the correct question, Dr. Santos? Not what humans can do, Dr. Santos replied, but why we do it. Human military doctrine isn't based on conquest or domination. It's based on protection and preservation. We developed our capabilities not to threaten others, but to ensure that threats could be resolved without unnecessary destruction. She activated her own holographic display, showing images that told a different story about human civilization. Not training facilities and martial arts demonstrations, but hospitals, schools, agricultural projects, environmental restoration efforts. Human society invests more resources in healing than in fighting, more energy in building than in destroying. Our martial traditions exist as part of a larger philosophy that values life above victory. Senator Colmark of the Thraxian Empire, whose people were among the most militaristic in the galaxy, voiced the skepticism many felt. Dr. Santos, your people demonstrated the ability to capture entire fleets without casualties. Such capability represents power that could easily be turned toward conquest. Could be, Dr. Santos agreed. But, won't be. Human history includes periods of warfare and conquest, just as yours does. But, we learn from those experiences that true strength comes not from the ability to destroy your enemies, but from the ability to turn enemies into friends. The statement seemed naive to many delegates, until she continued with specifics that demonstrated the practical application of such philosophy. Over the past 6 months, human advisors have been working with former hegemony military units to restructure their training programs. Instead of teaching assault tactics, we're teaching defensive strategies. Instead of emphasizing weapons proficiency, we're emphasizing conflict de-escalation. The result has been a 97% reduction in internal conflicts within former hegemony space. Admiral Torvax, who had been present during the initial human demonstrations, requested recognition. Dr. Santos, while human intentions appear benevolent, the reality remains that your species possesses capabilities that could threaten any civilization in this galaxy. What assurances can you provide that human power will not be misused? Dr. Santos smiled, an expression that somehow conveyed both understanding and deep confidence. Admiral, I can provide you with something better than assurances. I can provide you with partnership. The new holographic display showed something unprecedented: detailed proposals for integrated training programs, cultural exchange initiatives, and joint research projects that would share human techniques with other coalition species while learning from their technological achievements.
Humans don't want to dominate galactic civilization, Dr. Santos explained. We want to contribute to it.
Our martial arts, properly taught, can enhance the defensive capabilities of every coalition world.
Our conflict resolution methods can help prevent wars before they start. Our healing techniques can reduce casualties in conflicts that cannot be avoided. Senator Kelthera of the Scientific Consortium Worlds raised a technical question.
Dr. Santos, our analysis suggests that human capabilities involve manipulation of bioelectric fields in ways that seem to contradict known physics.
Would humans be willing to share this knowledge for scientific study?
Not just willing, Dr. Santos replied, eager.
Human scientists have been developing theoretical frameworks for our traditional techniques for decades.
We believe that combining human empirical knowledge with coalition theoretical understanding could advance both of our civilizations significantly.
The implications were staggering. Access to human techniques could revolutionize coalition medicine, engineering, and strategic thinking.
In return, human development could be accelerated by thousands of years through access to galactic technology and knowledge. There is one condition, Dr. Santos added, her expression becoming more serious.
Any species that learns human techniques must commit to using them according to human ethical principles.
These abilities are powerful enough to be dangerous if misused, and we will not share them with civilizations that might employ them for conquest or oppression. The condition sparked immediate debate among the delegates. Some saw it as an attempt at cultural imperialism, while others recognized it as a necessary safeguard against abuse of knowledge that could destabilize the entire galaxy. Senator Veltash called for order, then addressed the central question. Dr. Santos, you're proposing fundamental changes to how galactic civilization approaches conflict, security, and interspecies relations. This goes far beyond standard membership procedures.
Because humans represent something far beyond standard membership candidates, Dr. Santos replied. We're not asking to be integrated into existing systems. We're offering to help evolve those systems into something better. Commander Zexel requested permission to add military perspective.
Senators, I have spent months observing human capabilities and methods. In my professional opinion, the choice before us is simple: we can fear human power and attempt to contain it, which would likely prove impossible and certainly prove counterproductive. Or we can embrace human partnership and learn from their example.
He paused, then added the observation that would ultimately sway the Senate's decision: the hegemony made the first choice.
Their empire is now extinct as a military threat, but their people are alive, healthy, and learning better ways to resolve their conflicts. The humans demonstrated that there is a third option in warfare: victory without destruction. The final vote came after 3 days of debate, technical presentations, and closed-door negotiations.
When Senator Veltash announced the results, they represented more than just Earth's admission to the coalition. They represented a fundamental shift in how galactic civilization would approach its future challenges.
The motion to accept Earth as a full member of the coalition passes by a vote of 347 to 53. Additionally, the motion to establish the Integrated Defense Initiative, incorporating human tactical doctrine into coalition military training, passes by a vote of 312 to 88. But the most significant vote was the last one: the motion to establish the Galactic Peace Corps, based on human conflict resolution principles and staffed by volunteers from all member species, passes by a vote of 361 to 39. As the session concluded and delegates began preparing for the long process of implementing these revolutionary changes, Dr. Santos found herself approached by a group of military officers from various coalition species. Dr. Santos, Admiral Zexel said, speaking for the group, we would like to formally request assignment to the first human-led training program.
We want to learn what you tried to teach us from the beginning.
Which is that true strength comes not from what you can destroy, Zexel replied, but from what you can protect. Dr. Santos nodded, her expression reflecting both satisfaction and the weight of responsibility that came with humanity's new role in galactic affairs.
Training begins next month. But I should warn you, learning to fight like a human is the easy part. What's the hard part? Asked one of the younger officers.
Learning to think like one, Dr. Santos replied. Learning to see every conflict as an opportunity for understanding, every enemy as a potential friend, every battle as a chance to build something better than what existed before. As the assembled officers contemplated the implications of such thinking, the broader galaxy was already beginning to change. Human advisors were establishing training centers on dozens of worlds. Former hegemony territories were experiencing unprecedented peace and prosperity. Most significantly, conflicts that would previously have escalated to warfare were being resolved through negotiation guided by human diplomatic techniques. The species that had once been dismissed as primitive for their lack of advanced weapons had proven something profound. The most powerful force in the universe wasn't technology, energy, or firepower. It was the disciplined human spirit, properly trained and wisely applied. And, now, for the first time in galactic history, that force would be used not to conquer worlds, but to unite them.